Hello, everybody. So today we are going to continue our discussion of factoring, and we're going to move into Chapter 8, Section 6. And in this chapter and section, we're going to discuss a little bit more of an in-depth factoring technique, and that is how to basically undo foiling. So in the last chapter and section, we talked about how to distribute and then how to undistribute, which is to be called factor. And that factoring was taking the GCF out of multiple terms that you had. Now, those expressions that we had could vary, but the theme of it was you had to come up with the GCF first and then divide it out. Now, sometimes that won't work. Sometimes you can't take a GCF out. It's always the first thing that you should try, but sometimes it just won't work. So we have another factoring technique that allows us to factor expressions that look like this. And if you look at that, you can see it's m to the second plus 9m plus 20. But there are no GCFs for this, so you could not just take a GCF out. We have to have a different way to factor this. And so that way is to undo the foiling. So you can see that when I would foil these two together, x times x gives me x squared, x times 7 gives me 7x, 4 times x gives me 4x, and then 4 times 7 gives me 28. Now the two like terms are 7x and 4x, so we would add those two together and get 11x plus 28. And you can see this, if you remember, is called a quadratic trinomial. It's a quadratic because the highest power is 2, and it's a trinomial because there are 3 terms. Now we need a way to take this answer that we got when we foiled things together and unfoil it, put it back to the way it was before in its 2 separate factored forms. So we don't call it unfoiling, we just call it factoring. It's just another method of factoring. So I'm going to show you how to do that. In the way that we do it is we take our trinomial that you can see here. I have m to the second plus 9m plus 20. And the first thing we do is we draw a plus sign above the middle term and a multiplication sign above the last term. Now, this is assuming, of course, that your expression is in standard form. It needs to be a quadratic trinomial in standard form. Once we've written the plus and the multiplication, we start with the multiplication and we write all the factors of 20 out. So we'll write 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and then 4 and 5. So once we have the factors written out for 20, we want to look and find the pair of factors that will add up to be 9. In this case, 4 plus 5 is 9. So those are the two numbers that we will use to write our factored form. Now, to write the factored form, the first thing that you want to do is to write 2 sets of parentheses. And then we'll look at this variable right here, m squared. We would get that by doing m times m. So we put 1m at the beginning of each set of parentheses. And then we use the two numbers that we have right here, and we fill those in, plus 4, plus 5. And there you have it. It's factored. That's how it's done. It's not too terribly difficult. What you have to remember is a couple of simple things on writing out your factors and then how the answer will be formatted. Now, if you wanted to check that your answer was done correctly, we could refoil this, what we have here, the m plus 4 times m plus 5 together to see if we get our original expression. So m times m is m to the second. M times 5 is 5m. 4 times m is 4m, and then 4 times 5 is 20. When I add the two like terms together, I get 9m plus 20, and you can see that this matches exactly what I started with, which means my original factoring, what I did here, was correct. Now, you don't have to do this step. You can see where I foiled these out. You don't need to do that. I was just showing you how if you factor correctly, then when you FOIL it together, you will get the original equation. So our answer here is this part that I have highlighted, m plus 4 times n plus 5. So let's try another one. A little less explanation this time, just kind of go through the procedure. So we'll put a plus above the 12 and a multiplication above the 20. We then will write out the factors of 20, 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. We need to find the two numbers that add to give us 12, which is right here. And you can see that 10 and 2 will give us 12. Once we do that, we write our two parentheses. We put the g here and here, because g times g is g squared. And then we put our two numbers, plus 2, plus 10. And there's our final answer. Again, if you would FOIL that together, you would get the original expression. So I'll show you a couple more of these. Procedure is the same as the last ones. We have, this is a quadratic trinomial. And so we'll put a plus over the 11. We'll put a multiplication over the 18. We write our factors of 18, 1 and 18, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. We need to determine which pair will add up to be 11. In this case, 2 and 9 do. So those are our two numbers. We write our parentheses. We write our parentheses. We put our variable first in both sets of parentheses, and then we write our two numbers, 2 and 9. And that's it. Last one, a plus above the 12, a multiplication above the 32. We write our factors of 32, 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 4, and let's see here, 8. And I think that's it. Yep. Which two give us 12? You can see 4 and 8 add up to be 12. So we write our parentheses. X and an X, and then a plus 4 and a plus 8. And there's our factored form. So I hope that made sense. If you do have any questions, guys, feel free to reach out through email, and I'll be happy to answer your question. Have a great day.